Hey everyone. So, as you might have seen from some of my social media content, we started launching free tests for people, and I've really liked the results that we're getting. So, we want to start ramping up the amount of people that we launch free tests for. And I said, what better way to do it than, of course, to do it with outbound email? And so, I made a campaign which actually turned out to be an amazing clay training for my team. So, I thought I would post it on YouTube for everybody else as well. And so, if you are thinking to yourself, who's this guy and why would I trust him about outbound cold email? My name is Eric Nowoslawski. I run Growth Engine X, where we send about 4 to 5 million cold emails a month on behalf of our customers. And I used to work at clay.com, so I helped build the product. We're going to be doing a clay demo for you all right here as well too. I've been running the agency for 4 years, and we send a lot of cold email for people. And so we do a lot of this, and I'm going to show you the clay table that backs all this up. So, a lot of times when we're building clay tables for people, we're mainly doing it via, we'll oftentimes build the audience list either in clay or we'll build it in Apollo when we want it to. And then in Apollo, we can't get all of the filters that we need. You can't get all the filters from any platform just because of the way that it is. So, you have to use something like clay. So, when we run a free test, there's a couple things that I want to make sure of. And so we're going to clean the list to make sure that all of this criteria is true about the company before we try to write an email to them. And then we'll go over the email that we're going to send them. And so basically, I want to make sure that the company is actually a B2B company. And I'll show you how we do that. We're going to make sure that they're not in any of our blacklist industries. So if you're watching this video and you are a SEO agency, a software development agency, a staffing and recruiting firm, a payment processor, I'm trying to think of any others, but I just, you know, God bless you and how tough it is to market anything in compliance. Oh, geez. Any of these things that it's really tough to get leads for. We've just not had good success in the past. Maybe there's somebody else in the world who's had better success than us, but we've tried enough times that I don't want to try anymore. So we're going to make sure they're not in any of our blacklist industries. We're going to have AI try to assume how many contacts there are on LinkedIn. This isn't a really, I don't have a lot of trust in this, but at least there's a little bit of an extra thing. We have denied people doing free tests with us, mostly because we really need there to be like 50 to 60,000 contacts at minimum. I really prefer 100,000 contacts easily available for us to really be able to do some damage for your pipeline. So we want to have that. Try to figure out if a customer is worth more or less than $5,000. That's another thing. If you're going to be doing outbound marketing, your customers need to be higher ticket for sure. And then we're going to figure out if they have a sales team already. So all of that is baked into the clay table, I promise. And then the last things is whenever we're setting up a campaign, we always set up our custom variables and then I'll make comments on what we want to make this. So for the subject line, if we can find a competitor, then we're going to insert the competitor. If we can find a case study, we'll insert the case study. And then if we can't find either, we'll just send question, and that's fine. Then for our first line, if we find a case study, we're going to output, I saw the work you did with case study helping them XYZ. I was wondering if you run outbound campaigns to get more customers like them. If we get a competitor, we're going to say, it's seen people compare you to a competitor, and I was wondering how you think about acquiring customers cheaper than them. And then if we can't find either of them, we're just going to have this fallback here where we're going to say, how are you connecting with potential customer types? So how are you connecting with VPs of finance to help them, whatever they do? So how are you connecting with VPs of finance to help them with their expense management? So that even if, so we don't lose anybody if they fit this criteria and they don't have a case study that Clayagent can find or a competitor that Clayagent can find, we still run this absolutely. And then we'll send our creative ideas, which as long as there's website content and a valid email address, that's all going to be there. So we'll get that done. So let's hop over to the clay table and show how we do this. So this is all just that initial Apollo data that we were talking about. And so then the first thing that we do in all of our clay tables is we confirm that they still work at the company that Apollo said that they work at, because this enriched person from LinkedIn, this data from Clay is super updated. The Apollo data might not be as updated. So first, we have a whole workflow that is confirming that, hey, this person does work at the company that we think that they work at. And we're checking their current experience. And this one in particular is doing a lookup for, see how we have this LinkedIn company ID? I mean, it's really their username. We're making sure that, so here we're filtering for all of their experience that's true and it's current, sorry. Here, this is looking for the LinkedIn company URL, and here's just looking for the company name because sometimes there's edge cases over there. And then we confirm where they work. Every single campaign that we launch ever is always doing this. This is our templated table that we use for everybody, and there's no edits to this. Then, since we process so much email data, very likely we have already processed the data from the past. So we have a Supabase with 4 million records in it by now, and we keep the name, the title, the company they work at, and then the valid email and the last date that we verified the email, and we see if we could pull it from the database. So that if we can pull it from the database, it just goes to the end and we just fill it in, because if they still work at the place that I think that they work at and we validated it less than 3 months ago, we don't need to validate it again. And then since Apollo comes with emails, then we will use Lead Magic to validate the email. And if Lead Magic can't validate it, we just double check it real quick with Prospeo. And if Prospeo can't validate it, then we use Lead Magic to find more emails, ICPs to find more emails, Prospeo to find more emails, and we drop them into this column over here, which this is just because I think everybody should be using multiple providers, but you shouldn't go crazy. I've just found Lead Magic is super, super fast. ICPs and Prospeo are just great because they find these catch-all emails that sometimes other platforms can't find as well too. We lead it all off with Lead Magic mainly because of the cost input, and then we get into our verification. I personally, I know a lot of these platforms say that they have valid emails, and I think there's merit to a lot of them, but my bounce rates are always the healthiest and they're under 1% when I double verify with what they said was valid and then we use a third party. So currently my favorite email verification tool is Instantly's verification tool because it's connected to the actual sending that they have on the platform, which I think is ingenious and I can't believe people haven't done that before. But right now it's erroring because I just need to go get more credits. So then we have this formula so that we don't double run an Instantly and a debounce one. So then debounce is cleaning up our list right now, and then we just get this master email column over here, and then this is just our workflow to just update the Supabase right here. Now I haven't set up the smart lead campaign because it's not necessary, but I just wanted to give you a tour of how we're setting up our regular. Just this is our template up until here. This is just our template that we launch every campaign with. Now we need to start getting into the workflow. So first, we need to figure out, are these companies qualified? So we're going to use Clagent to go get a description of the company and check out how cheap it is to be able to do that. Really, really, really cheap. Sometimes we'll do this with Zenros, and then sometimes, man, Clagent is faster and cheaper and just a little bit more reliable, so we'll pull that over. And so then we use AI, and we will then output. Do we think the company has over 50,000 contacts? Is it in a whitelist industry? Do we think a customer is worth $5,000? And is it B2B? And we'll output all of this actually from one AI column, mostly because these are kind of loose things and I just want it to hopefully have the stars aligned, but I don't need it to pay for it to be absolutely right every single time. And the other reason we're doing this is sometimes one big mistake I'll see when people are making clay tables is they'll ask Clagent to find the information and make the decision, and you don't want to do that for two reasons. One, you should only ask AI to do one thing at a time. And then two, uh, you can't give training examples to Clagent. So whatever it kind of just in that run thinks is a B2B company and thinks is a whitelist industry is going to shake out in that way. And so if you look at our outreach suitability, the main reason we wanted to use this is because look at all these examples we're able to put in and train and say, hey, based on this, this is what I think the output should be. Based on this, this is what I think the output should be. If I were to put any more work into this and I were to say, hey, these ICP filters aren't working very well, I actually probably wouldn't change the prompt. I would focus way more on changing the examples that we add into here. So then we do that. And then here we're just seeing if they have any salespeople on their team. And then if all of these stars align, if everything comes together, then we'll mark them as a qualified lead. Now, I know that some people watch my clay videos and they say, wow, you run a lot of integrations. What if you don't have a budget to be able to do these kinds of things? What the heck? Like, you're paying for these emails ahead of time. I will say, full disclosure, we have a lot of economies of scale that really make it so that we can find everybody's emails, make sure it's worth running them through this. And then once we know that it's worth running them through the lead qualification, then we could say, okay, they're qualified, and then we could start making their messaging. You'll see we have 1,000 people uploaded, but then out of the people who got qualified, and I'm not totally sure if everything totally ran, but there's 1,000 people and only 75 people got qualified. I also don't want to just be reaching out to everybody because then we're just going to be running tests or setting the expectation that we should be running tests for a bunch of people. So even if you just look at the drop off here, out of all of the email addresses that we have, out of 1,000, there's only 394 email addresses in here anyway. And then from that 394, we went down to 75 out of the qualification, which makes sense. It's not like I want to serve every single company and I want to give everybody a free test, right? So then we have a Clayagent where we find the case study listed on their website. Remember from our doc over here, this is exactly what we're searching for. So then we have this Clayagent looking for a case study. Personally, and I tell my team this, you can just output as good of a prompt as you think you should, and then use Clay's meta prompter to generate the prompt for you because it does a really, really great job now about all of that. And then we just use one more, case study contribution. Then we'll just use one more AI to just validate the data. The only thing I find that Clayagent will do is sometimes if you say, hey, get the information from this website, it might go like bounce around and go to a different website. So we'll run Clayagent and then we'll use one more AI column to just double confirm and say, hey, who was this actually? And then you'll see that we have purple here because see how it says case study and then it says NA? Well, then we're just outputting and we're saying, hey, purple is just the thing that we need to filter out on and just say, hey, if you couldn't find a case study, output purple. The reason we do that is because in a lot of ways, AI is like a fifth grader that has infinite knowledge. Yes, it could do a lot of things and it does have infinite knowledge. But even if you were to say, hey, don't output anything and you wanted to try to leave this blank, AI is trained to do something. So you just got to give it something to say when you output it. So then if we couldn't find the case study, then we're finding our competitor, just like I said. And again, we used Clay's meta prompter to be able to get this done. And then we find the case study. The top competitor, just like that. And then one big point here that I want to point out in this prompt is sometimes you'll get the case study. Let's see, where did I put it? Nope, never mind. So it wasn't in this one. But so then we'll get the case study over here, and then we could start creating our messaging. So if we did not get a top competitor or a case study, then this is where we are creating their fallback sentence. And then we will merge our GEX first line. And I was wondering, where did these go? See how I'm making our competitor line just with a formula right here? So basically, I have all these if statements to just make sure that we get the formula correct. And then I'm doing the same thing over here, but I'm using AI to output it so that we get a nice sentence. I saw the work you did with a leading quick service restaurant, helping them implement a glove color coding system, which, yeah, leading QSR. Okay, so that's just what they said, right? But then this, we couldn't confirm this one, so we threw that one away. Let's check this one. A leading wholesale few. Okay, cool. And so then we can get the output over there. And then we have our GEX first line merge over here. So again, I even feel a little confused of what I just went over. So just remember, we looked for the case study, and then we confirmed with AI that this case study is a case study from the website. And this is even looking a little funky. This looks a little old. We changed this prompt, and you'll see it should output a little bit better. That's so odd. I got to check on that one. But anyway, then we output the case study, and usually it should be a case study that's ready for an outbound email right here. This is probably, we need to add more examples to be able to make it force itself to say, I saw the work you did with XYZ. And then if we found the case study, then we also are finding the top competitor because both of these are going to be used in our creative ideas. So we're running the case study and we're running the top competitor no matter what. And then we don't need to create an AI line with that because we're just getting the competitor name right here. And then I'm using a formula to push the competitor name into our personalized outbound messaging here. Then we get our case study line, we get our competitor line. If we don't have a case study line and we don't have a competitor line, we're going to have a fallback line saying, how are you connecting with, potential electrical contractors to help them with your high quality electrical services, materials, and support services. Then we merge our GX first line. So no matter where it came from, whether it was a case study line, it was a competitor line, or it was a fallback line, we get it all merged in here. So when we send it to Smart Lead, we're going to be all completely set with the first line as a custom variable coming from one column. And then we have another formula just for the subject line. I'll even change the name of this. So this will be the subject line. This formula of this subject line correlates with what we have in the output here. So if we said it seems people compare, then we're outputting the competitor name question. And then if we say I saw the work you did with, then we're outputting bleeding QSR food procurement question. And then if we aren't using, so this is obviously the case study line and this is the competitor line. And if we aren't using either of those, then we're going to say the fallback line, which then is just going to be customer question. And so now we've gotten the first basis of our messaging done. And then you see the creative ideas that we have in there. When sending, probably the most effective outreach strategy that we found across all of our customers is using AI and training AI to say, hey, this is what my company does. If we had the opportunity to work with your company, this is how specifically we would help your company. And I just think sending 3 bullet points of of creative ideas, in particular, these are outbound ideas, just really does a great job of that. And so you'll see this prompt. It's a much longer prompt because it's way harder to get these outbound ideas to come across really nicely. And then we have 3 examples here of things that we manually wrote so that we could get some outputs over here of things that we actually want to be pushing. Now we are also feeding into this the description of the company from the Claygen and then also LinkedIn that we pulled. And then we're also pulling in the case study as well to just pull any other kind of information about how they help their customers in there. And so now this clay table is ready to be pushed into Smart Lead. And so we're going to set this up in Smart Lead. And basically, I mean, our offer is that we're going to be running free tests for people, which if you got to the end of this video, which I mean, I appreciate you just watching me just stutter along and just talk about clay. If you got to the end of this video, we do run outbound campaigns for people for free for their first one, just because I think you should be able to know whether or not an outbound campaign is working rather quickly, and we have the infrastructure to be able to do that for you. As you can see, there's some qualifying things we just need to know about you. So in the description below, you'll see a form that you can fill out, and we can see if running a free test might be right for you. And maybe I'll see you on one of those calls. If anything, thanks for watching the video.